this call recorded. Okay, so we'll go right in and start. Thank you so much, everyone, once again. Thank you for joining. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting, fun learning edition of my HR story with Lara Yeku, which is a fun learning platform where we use the concept of storytelling, collaboration, and speed mentoring as critical tools for transformational learning. You agree with me that stories helps us to create connection. It's not just about listening to other people's experiences, but taking learnings from what has worked for them, as well as what didn't work for them, so we can all design our own unique story. We don't just tell anyhow story. We tell real life stories about career, about workplaces experience for transformational impact. And today, it's going to be another fun learning session, learning from an expert on a germane topic, which centers around emotional well-being. There's been a lot of conversation and talks around bringing your whole self to work, but a lot of people do need help and support on how to navigate and manage their emotion so that they can optimize the best of themselves. And today, we're going to be learning from someone who is an expert in the house. But before I proceed further to read his profile, please join me to listen to this very short montage on my HR story with Lara Yeku in a bit. Thank you so much once again for joining. It's so good to have you all this afternoon.
How it all started. Hi there. I remember the early days of my career. I had a lot of questions. I experienced and navigated several crossroads at different points in my career life. I made several mistakes, and that's the honest truth. I failed, and I took some wrong decisions at some critical points in my career life. I wanted to be able to reach a mentor for guidance, but they were far away, not their fault. They were extremely busy, and when I met with them, I wished they could spend more time with me. Then I progressed in my career and watched young professionals go through same pains. My HR storybook was created to bring life and career success principles to professionals through these three concepts. First, storytelling for relatability and authenticity. Second, mentoring on the go for accessibility and self-leadership. Third, collaboration for impact, growth, and opportunity to give for professional advancement. The mission has evolved from storybook, I am so excited, into a live interactive series with several seasoned professionals across the world for more connection and to give opportunity for live pinpoint conversations. I know you've been enjoying the series so far. To get more, follow my social media handles, and if you're already following me, click on the link below for more exciting series. See you around.
Wow, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to that short montage about myself. So we'll delve straight into it now. We have our guest speaker in the house, Bankole Williams. I would read out his profile now. His profile is very long, but I'll try as much as possible to just read a few, because even while I was reading the profile, I was like, wow, this is really heavy. You know, when they say somebody's profile is really heavy, carries tons and tons and tons of weight. Okay, so Bankole Williams is a consultant par excellence, a peak performance coach who has a proven record of helping organizations and individuals develop their human capacity to get great work done in less time so they can surpass the annual financial targets of their employers. He is a 2022 official member of the Forbes Coaching Council. He's a renowned force in consulting, assisting no less than 12 prominent banks in Nigeria develop and deploy solutions for long-term profitability and sustainability. For his exceptional work in human capital development in 2019, he was given the Coaching Icon Award. In 2020 and also in 2021, he was also named one of the most powerful person in corporate Nigeria by Y Niger, also in 2021. He was named one of the top 10 leadership coaches in Nigeria. Bankole is also a social reformer with a goal to solve problems of unemployment and underemployment through his foundation, Live Your Dreams Active Foundation. He has received several awards and recognition. His foundation, I think I find this very, very, very impactful. His foundation in 2019 received the Google.org Award for Youth Empowerment in Africa. Through his foundation, over 28,000 youth have been empowered. And in 2019, his foundation created 1,002 jobs in Lagos. Wow, this indeed shows that Bankole is a social reformer. Bankole is presently on the mission to create 2,000 jobs across the 6 geopolitical zone in Nigeria. Bankole is a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. He is a UK certified life and career coach and a certified management consultant from the International Council for Managing Consulting Institute. He's also a fellow of the International Management Consultant Certification Board, FIMCB. He is also widely regarded as a behavioral change expert. And for me, that is why I think Bankole is our go-to person when it comes to understanding the emotions, especially what role emotional changes play in changing the behavior of people. He is a force to be reckoned with in the field of management consulting with over 15 years experience in human resources and consulting field. In his quest to understand and optimize human potential, Bankole has gained management and career experience across several industries. He is the founder and principal consultant at LYD Consulting, a firm committed to delivering consulting intervention that lead to transformational change. Bankole Williams has designed, managed, and facilitated several customer service and personal workplace mastery training. So today we're going to be hearing from him when it comes to emotional mastery, because for me, a lot of times the struggle people usually have is that point where they're able to manage their emotions. And in the bid not, and in the quest in trying to manage their emotions, people have had to feel disempowered and empowered. And today, Bankole is going to be sharing with us how we can feel empowered by the emotions that we go through. I'll wrap up quickly with his profile. He's an expert at delivering training solutions on product line from self-mastery, emotional intelligence, executive coaching, change management, business communication, team bonding, superior service delivery, leadership, selling skills, employability, enterprise development, etc., etc. He has facilitated various culture transformation initiatives for several organizations. And for me, that remains the core of our conversation today. How do we begin to look at transforming culture? For me, it starts from transformed lives. When lives are transformed, they become better individuals. They become better versions of themselves, and they become better colleagues at work. They become better friends, better siblings, and that way, better society, and we'll have better organization. Thank you so much. Bankole, it's such an honor to have you join us this afternoon and share with us from your wealth of experience around personal self-mastery and for making our time. I I know how long it took me to track you to get your availability. We are so honored to have you in the house. Please, I guess, can you just put an emoji in the chat box just to celebrate Bankole Williams for joining us today? Just put in one emoji, love, roses, flower, just thumbs up. Let's appreciate him. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for that. So, Bankole, over to you. I'd like you to start by sharing the concept of emotional mastery. What is it about? Just let us share. Let's have your views on that first. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Lara, well done. Well done with this platform. I think that, having a platform like this where career professionals can come and learn about how to optimize, whatever potentials that they have. I think that is incredible. Well done. Great work here. Do it. So thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, you asked a question about emotional mastery, what is this thing? Why is it necessary? Right? At the heart of everything that we are chasing is an emotion, right? If you think about it, the end of every human endeavor is an emotion. At the end of the day, whatever it is that you are working for, whatever it is you're hoping for, you're aspiring towards, whatever your aspirations are, the end of every aspiration, every effort you put in is actually an emotion, if you think about it, right? So I do believe that the career professionals here, a good chunk of people will probably work 9 to 5s, right? So you have a job where you resume at physically or maybe virtually on a daily basis. And you work there every day, 9 to 5, 5 days a week, right? Some people 6, maybe 7, right? And then at the end of the month, you get paid something, you get rewarded something. So you get paid a salary. So the question is, are you working for the salary? Is that really the end, right? Is that the end of the means? The means being whatever it is that you're doing. You might be a banker, you might be in finance, investment banking, whatever it is, right? The end is the salary. That's what we think. But think about it. Nobody goes to the ATM at the end of the month, withdraws the salary and puts it in their mouth, right? So the salary cannot be the end, right? There's something that the salary does that is the end. So you take your money and then you can pay your children's school fees. And there is an accompanying feeling of fulfillment. Note, an accompanying emotion of feeling of fulfillment that comes with knowing that you can fulfill the obligation that you have towards your kids, utilizing or using your salary, right? Maybe you've been dreaming of this fancy Mercedes Benz that you've always wanted to buy. And now you've gotten a bonus and a pay raise or something, you've gathered the funds together, you go to the dealership, you buy the car, you enter that plush leather interior. As you are seated in that car, there's an accompanying feeling that comes with the purchase of that car, right? That is the end. That's what you're chasing at the end. So the end of it, think about it, every human endeavor, every effort, everything that you are committed towards, right? Everything you are chasing, at the end, you want to feel something, right? You want to feel something. So it's an emotion that is the end. Now, I used to work in a bank, and I think one of the things that I wrote, my first book is actually titled Engaged to a Job I Hate, right? Not that I was engaged to a job I hate, but I was surrounded with people who hated their jobs. And I didn't understand I didn't understand it. And now I'm able to put to words what I had conceptualized somewhere within that I could not articulate. I couldn't understand why people would be frustrated doing a job, right? And they would resume there the next day. I'm not saying you should up and leave or anything, but I'm just like, why is that the energy you're bringing to the work? You know, for some people, they feel that that is the effect. So the energy that they're feeling is the effect of whatever experience that they're having on the job. They fail to realize that they are the creators of whatever happens on the inside of them. So one of the reasons why I had a challenge with that was, you know, tying to this thing that I'm talking about, the end being the emotion. Think about it. If the end is to feel something, then does it now make sense spending, I don't know how many hours you spend, 10 hours of your life at work, unhappy, so that you can earn a salary to get the things that will make you happy? Did somebody get that? Does it make sense that you are actually in a pursuit to feel happiness? That's the end. But you now spend close to 10 hours, God knows how many hours. You resume at 8, you probably leave at 6 or something, right? You spend 10, 12 hours of your life unhappy, so you get paid at the end of the month so that you can purchase something that makes you happy. Doesn't make any sense, right? So what then is this journey to emotional well-being? It is, first of all, the recognition of the power that you possess to be the creator of whatever you feel on the inside. That power is not going to be outsourced to a boss. It's not going to be outsourced to the organization. It's not going to be outsourced to an irate or angry customer. That power is requisite within you, and you recognize the potential you have to regulate what goes on the inside, so that you are walking in alignment of what it is that you ultimately are chasing in life, right? So that's, you know, that's my perspective when it comes to the concept of emotional well-being and emotional mastery.
Wow, that was very, very good. Thank you so much. Listening to you really got me.
I can barely hear you. I think your audio is in me, or
Okay.
kind of feel like your audio is okay. I need to connect my mic. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
It's kind of low.
Uh-oh. Still low. Okay. I don't know why that is happening, but
Okay,
let me.
I think it's better now.
Is it better? I
Yes,
might have
it
to
is.
change my network. Is it better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Apologies for that. So, can you mute if you're not talking? Sarah, please help me to mute. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Bankole. I mean, that was very, very deep for me listening to you. In your concluding statement, you did mention about the need for us not to outsource that power that we have within us. And we are in a world where you get to work on a daily basis. You're in a toxic environment. You're trying as much as possible, right? To manage and not give away your power. But you find out that because of the daily interactions you have with people, sometimes you just have to let loose to either make a point or just to pass your message across. So as leaders in the workplace, how do we really try not to lose our power, given that some of us are in an environment where there's a whole lot of factors trying to drain us and see the other side of us. But what can we do differently? Not give outsource our power in the workplace, despite the environment.
I believe that the first thing is the recognition that you have the power. Right? Okay, somebody's mic might off. right? I think the first thing, like I said, is the recognition that you have the power. And, I always like to make this thing really practical so people get it, right? So there's one example I always use where I say, for instance, you are maybe back in the day, now you have a very comfortable means of transportation. So maybe you drive, maybe you're actually the owner of the Mercedes-Benz I was talking about or something, right? So you drive a good car. Well, back in the day, you didn't have a fancy car. You used to hop on buses, right? And one of those days you were standing at the bus stop, right? And then somebody, trying to rush to hop on a bus, steps on you with a heavy boot, right? And he doesn't have the courtesy to apologize, right? He just steps on you. And it was early Monday morning. You've said your prayers. You said today's going to be a beautiful day, and that's your experience. And then the person doesn't have the courtesy to apologize, is walking away. And in that moment, the blood is going to flow to your head, right? You're going to be upset in the moment, right? And then you walk up to the person to give him a piece of your mind. You tap him, he turns around, and then you find out he's a mobile policeman with a gun, right? Please, in the comments, I do believe that you guys are listening, right? In the comments, please, can you tell me what you're gonna do, right? So it steps on you, doesn't have the courtesy to apologize. You run up to him to tell him, right? And then as you tap him, he turns around. He's a mobile policeman with a gun, right? I know I can't, normally I would even love to see people, I'm just seeing, your profile pictures and everything, right?
It'll be good. Let's be interactive, guys.
Yeah, so please feel free to turn on your cameras, right? It'll be really nice to get to see some people. Somebody says walk away, right? Anyton says I will be numb. Demola says I know get 2 lives, I beg. Right? Aziz will walk away. Right? Bossede says she'll be calm. I'll say Oga, you're handsome. Right? Now, can you see how negative energy was instantaneously diffused? But I thought you do not have control. I thought, when somebody gives it to you, you have to give it back to them, give it back to him now, as in give it back to the mobile policeman, right? Chidima says, I'll let him know and walk away. Huh? The truth is, well, the intensity with which you would have let him know before, the minute you see it go on, right, it's very likely that there will be an adjustment. Chioma says, I'll tell him, but not harshly. Now, it's the same thing we're saying. It's the same thing. So you can still let out whatever it is you need to let out, but have you just seen that you have the capacity to do it without doing it harshly? Right. So the first thing is the recognition of the power that you possess to self-regulate. And you see, I can explain this thing. I study a lot of science, and that's because I really just want to know the building blocks of this world, right? And, one of the things that distinguishes human beings from other animals, right? All the people that are saying they will let him know, the common thread is that you will let him know politely, right? So that means that you regulated the intensity of how you would have expressed it. So nobody is saying you shouldn't articulate your views or opinions, but can you see that there is a how to do it that makes a world of difference, right? That you have the power to carry out, right? So what makes us different as human beings? How are human beings any different from dogs? How are human beings any different from lions and other animals out there, right? Scientifically, it's been proven that there's a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex that's responsible for executive decision-making, and it's responsible for self-regulation, right? That part of the brain in human beings, in comparison to the entire brain, that portion of the brain is larger right, as compared to every other animal. And there is a chromosome called the chromosome 2 that human beings have, and it is the chromosome that regulates, that gives them the power to self-regulate. So human beings have the capacity and the power to choose a response in the middle of a crisis. It is a power that we have. It is our unique selling point. It is what distinguishes us. It is what makes us higher animals or higher organisms in comparison with other animals. But most people have relegated to the background this unique feature of self-regulation. So the first thing is the recognition that you possess the power. The consciousness of power is power. The consciousness of powerlessness in the presence of power is powerlessness. So most people are conscious of powerlessness in the presence of power and experience powerlessness, right? So that's the first thing, right? And most people, it's conversations like this that begin to shine the spotlight on the capacity that you possess, right? So I worked in the bank, so I trust me, I get it all. I worked in the high work rate, high work ethic, organization. We're known for delivering top-notch quality. You can try to figure out the bank that it is. And I remember that there was a department in that bank, or a division in the bank, that was just known for just generally the perception was toxicity. The superiors would talk down on supervisors, who would talk down on the team leads or team members and all that. It was a culture. Right? And culture is a way people do things. It was a way of operation in that place. And I'm very energy sensitive. So when I get into a place, I can sense the collective energy in the room. And the collective energy that you would find in that department was so tense. It was so dense. It's like the collective energy that we find in our country today, right? It's tense, right? People coming from other parts of the world can feel it, that there's just something different in the air. And I'm saying that collectively as individuals, everybody was contributing to the pool of the collective energy and you could tell that it was dense, right? The question is, how do you thrive in an environment like that, right? I'll tell you. And it's a consistent, deliberate, intentional effort to ensure that your energy is greater than the energy of the environment. You must have a strategy for ensuring that, because if you go by default, you will default into the predominant energy. Do you understand? If you just go as you are, which is what I see happen a lot. If you just show up without any intentional practice to ensure that your own energy is elevated, right, you will default into the collective energy. I remember that there was a friend of mine who, when we recruited him, he had heard about the culture of that particular division and was posted there. And he said to me, "Bankole, man, this place is so toxic. I can't be like these guys. I've heard how they talk down on people, curse people out, right? Nah, it doesn't align with my values. I'm not going to be like that." Fast forward 1 year down the line, I went to visit him in his office, and I stepped into the office, and I was hearing someone with a loud voice shredding a subordinate. He had gotten promoted to becoming team lead, and he was just giving it to this guy. And I said, "Look, who do I see? My friend," right? And I walked up to him. I'm like, "What's going on?" And he's like, he insulted the guy, and I was just looking. I'm like, all I could remember was the promise that he made. right, a year ago that he was not going to be like that. But guess what? If you do not have things that you do to ensure that you are greater than the environment, you will default into the environment, right? So that's one of the things I really encourage people to do, to have a practice for ensuring that they raise their own energy, right? And the different things people do. I can tell you mine. I'm very big on meditating, right? And just creating. So just creating what I'm going to look like in the course of the day, right? A simple question I ask myself is, what will greatness look like today, right? And begin to visualize, right? What's the greatest, grandest, most magnificent version of me would look like? How would greatness walk today, right? And I visualize how the most magnificent, grand, walking splendorous version of me, right, would look like. And I begin to install those circuits in my brain, right? And I show up great in my head, because the body will always go in the direction of the mind, right? And because I want my body to go in the direction of greatness, I want my body to go in the direction of control, right? I create that first in my mind, right? And I don't just create it just as thoughts, I create it as emotions, because I don't need something on the outside to happen to me to create the emotion on the inside. It's the way we've been cultured. We've been conditioned to think that something needs to happen to you for you to experience a certain level of emotion, right? So if that's the way you regulate, then you predispose yourself to be a victim. Because if something doesn't happen on the outside, nothing will happen on the inside, right? So you are a victim of chance or happenstance, right? And I've chosen not to be a victim. I recognize that I'm the creator of my reality, right? And I can create from within. And that which I create from within, when my eyes are closed, I perfect on the outside when my eyes are open.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, Bankole, for that. I mean, you are absolutely spot on. Please confirm you can hear me clearer now. Am I audible?
Yes, it's
okay,
way better.
Awesome. Yeah. So when you were talking about having a practice or having a strategy that works for you, otherwise you just might realize you're zooming into the default mode. I totally can relate with that, because for me, I've found that dancing, listening to music and dancing helps me a lot. I tell people that the nature of my work is extremely stressful. Working in a manufacturing environment, I'm a mom, I have so many things going on. I realized that when I get into that state of being overwhelmed and I'm able to shift my state through dancing and listening to music, I'm able to distress, I'm able to detoxify all the negative energy, and that just works for me. So it's important that we all need to find out what strategy works for you. And from a place of awareness, from a place of what you want to become and being intentional about it, that really would help us go a long way in designing the life that we desire for ourselves. Thank you so much. Okay, do we have any questions? Please feel free. If you have any question, you can use the raise hand button, or you can put your question in the chat box, and let's just get talking about it this afternoon. So, Bankole, I was chatting with a group of friends a couple of days ago, and one of them mentioned to me about anytime she wants to go see her director, what she has to do first is to call the PA and ask, what's the mood of Oga today? What's the mood of Oga today? He's not in a good mood.
if he's not, then you know that no, whatever decision that he has to take that day will not go in the right direction. You did mention about how the frontal part of our brain, the cortex, helps in influencing our decision making. But in this context where you have to work with other people. I mean, you're working on yourself, but you do need the alignment. You need contribution from other people to get your work done. And they just don't have this emotional power in code that we're here talking about. How do you navigate through working and collaborating with them to get your own work done? It would be nice to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, beautiful question. So in answering the previous question, I spoke a bit about self-management, right, or self-awareness and then self-management, right? It's also important because no man exists in isolation, right? Someone's mic is on. Okay, yeah. No man exists in isolation, right? No man is an island. We exist with people, so we must also transcend beyond just the realm of self to the realm of others, right? Where we become socially aware and we have what I call social expertise, right? Now social awareness is really paying attention, right? Paying close attention to emotional cues, right, that other people give off, and learning how to navigate with those cues to get the best out of those relationships that we have with people, right? So you have control over yourself. The way you control yourself. So the way you control yourself will determine how other people respond to you, right? So there's something called the circle of concern and circle of, influence and all that, right? The truth is there are some things that are within your control, right? And you want to focus on what is within your control. And the more you focus on what is within your control, the better you are equipped to even influencing what ordinarily will be outside of your control. So the first step is being able to manage your state in spite of whatever is happening on the outside. So this person who, for instance, has a director who, may not be in a good mood and may talk down on you and all of that. The question is, how do you respond, first of all, when you are giving that kind of energy, right? Are you calm? Are you composed? Or are you reacting to the energy that you're being given? Because if you react to that energy you're being given, you are very likely to get worse of that kind of energy, likely to get more of that kind of energy, because energy is very contagious. As you're feeling what he's feeling, what you're also giving or what you're putting out there can also have a ripple effect, and come back to you in a very interesting way, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing for me is, like I said, paying attention. And, there are different people with different personality traits, right? And if you understand the profile, so one of the things I advise people is observe, pay attention enough to be able to kind of profile people, to have an idea of how they are, so that you can, based off that information, be able to adjust your communication to get the best out of that interaction. So I'll give you a very good example. So I use the analogy of driving cars, for instance, right? If you've ever driven a trailer before, right? Some people may not, but you witnessed somebody do it or something, If you want to make a U-turn with a trailer, please in the comments, guys, let me know. If you want to make a U-turn with a trailer, just picture a Nigerian, trailer, big trucks, right, with their heavy backs and everything. And you had the privilege of driving that car and you wanted to make a U-turn. In the comments, can you let me know, what is that experience going to be like? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be tough? Right? Would you just get to the U-turn and make the U-turn? Or you have to start preparing from a while ago, right? I can bet that a number of people would agree with me that it would be tough. Now, if you want to make a U-turn with a Picanto, what is that experience going to be like? You don't even have to think about it. One hand, you get there, you make the U-turn. Now, what I tell people is if the stakeholders you have to work with in an organization are like cars, using this analogy, what have you learned? Right? If the different stakeholders, the directors, the board members, your superiors, the CEO, right? If they are like these kinds of cars, right? The question is, what are you learning, right? From navigating the different types of cars, right? And in very simple terms, you cannot drive a trailer using the understanding of a Picanto. People are different. For you to drive a trailer, you need to understand the configuration of the trailer and adjust your communication with the trailer to suit the configuration of the trailer. But if you go as you are with whatever limited knowledge that you have of a Picanto, and you say, oh, I'm a Picanto kind of driver, and you step into the world of a trailer with the understanding and with the this is how I amness, my type of person, that's how we are, worldview. What is going to happen to that trailer if you drive with that kind of mindset? You say, someone said, my last accident. You will have a lot of accidents, on the road or on this your career journey. You will have a lot of challenges and issues, all that. So in very simple terms, what am I saying? Study the people you work with. Study their temperaments. Study, and this may not be the direct purpose of this interaction, but study their personality. Understand what works and be willing to adjust. Now, I know that communication is a two-way street, but I do not have control over the other party, right? So I know some of you are like, but they should also adjust. But they are not here now. They are not. You don't. I have no control over anyone outside of myself. But I have control over myself and the adjustments I can make to get the best out of an interaction. I'll wrap this up, this question with an experience that I had, right? So I had a boss who, if I was to describe his personality, he was, I call him a systematic Ford if I was using a car, right? He was this kind of personality is very detailed, right? They spot the I's that are not dotted, the T's that are not crossed. They are perfectionists. They are motivated by standards, motivated by compliance, right? That's this person's profile, right? You will do great work, but they will find one small error. In fact, that's what gives them, they boost their ego, that they were able to spot errors, right? It's just a type. But if you are someone who is very lighthearted, very carefree about life, right? You may have clashes with people like this and not understand, but you may think that they are picking on you. Someone is always picking on my work. No, it's not. It's not personal. It's just the configuration. He's configured, his wiring is such that excellence is a moving target. What was excellent yesterday cannot be excellent today. That's just his wiring. I had a boss like that, right? And I remember, when I worked in the bank, my boss would tell me to draft a memo, right? Because I worked in HR then, most of our memos would be addressed to all staff, right? So you needed to ensure it's It didn't have errors. It was very professional. It appealed to a wide array of people. So we were always cross-checking to be sure that, we're communicating the right message and not rubbing people off, a certain way. And I'll draft this memo. I'll give it to him to sign. And then he'll take his pen. He had this red pen, and he would start crossing out, canceling, replacing. By the time this guy is done, right, with my work, the only words of mine that will be left were words like A, off, V, right? He would have canceled. In my mind, I'll just be like, oh God, you should have done this thing. Why are you stressing my life? Right? So one time this guy told me to do a memo. And luckily for me, or so I thought, we had done a similar memo some months back, same kind of memo. So I went to the final edits of a few months back, and I edited just the dates, right? Because it was the same kind of memo. I said, this is the one that he edited and he approved. I went, printed it, gave it to him to sign.
Copy and paste.
This guy took his red pen again and started canceling. And then he now wanted to give it to me. Bankole was all this. I said, oh God, no, it's not me, it's you. This is the one that you did. Right? And, over time, I got to discover his person, that's his wiring. That's his configuration. Now, to get the best out of the interaction with that kind of person, what should I do ahead of time? It means that I cannot come with work that has not been properly researched. I cannot come with work that has errors on it, because even if I've written a 6-page document, if there's an error on paragraph 1, the entire document is rubbish, right? So I need to pay a bit more attention to detail, right? I need to give him a lot more facts and figures, because those things tend to stimulate them that, you have done research, you've done work. I need to be able to quote authority figures that he respects. And, knowing that, I now knew the adjustment I needed to make, right, to get the best out of the interaction. I hope this helps.
Wow, awesome. That was really very interesting. Thank you. So in understanding ourselves, we also need to observe and understand the people we work with. Yes. I remember a couple of years ago, while I still had a team of about 9 people that I was leading, I realized for some members of my team, I was getting along with them, but for some others, I wasn't getting along with them, because I was using one method to lead all 9 of them, until I got to a point where I had to sit and I was asking for direct feedback. And they kept saying, well, you tried to push me, but I would prefer that we work this way. Until I was able to get the feedback from them to understand how they want to be led. That way, I had to change my leadership strategy. So even though I was leading multiple people, I wasn't leading them the same way. I had to understand their language, right? And that really is important, either top, bottom, or bottom up. Understand the people we work with, understand their personality, understand their social style, understand where they are coming from as well. And in your understanding, all you need to do is just to ensure that you're also able to regulate how you respond and not react in your interactions with them. Thank you so much, Bankole, for that very insightful example you shared. I have a question in the chat box from Davida. It reads, hi, Bankole. Thank you. Did you have it all together and coordinated from the beginning? Could you share some earlier bungles you made and the consequences and how you recovered from it or rectified the solo?
Yeah, I was born perfect from the womb.
For where? Did you fall from heaven?
No, I'm teasing. Of
I
course,
know.
of course I had.
I
Of
know.
course I
I
have.
know.
I still make mistakes. I still sometimes surprise myself. Sometimes, um, not as much as I used to. Right. So thankfully I'm growing. Right. I think Bossede's mic is on. Right. So, okay. Right. So thankfully, over time I've grown, but I've made mistakes. You know, I remember. So since we're speaking, career related stuff. Um, so I can share from how some of my experiences when I worked as a banker, then maybe experiences even now, because I lead a team of people, right? Or I run my own business. I remember when I worked in Guarantee Trust Bank, when I started off, so my purse, I've evolved a lot over time. I used to be very quiet. I used to like to just do my work. Just doing your work does not work. Oh. It cannot get you far.
I've
Right.
been there too.
Right. And thankfully, I had a boss who could see beyond some of my flaws, right? Um, I remember there was a time, so we had this, it was called an SIT fund, right? So it was a fund that was managed by some members of the management team of the bank. And there was the secretary to the fund, right? And the secretary to the fund was an employee of the bank. Right. And there was a guy, Akim, he was the secretary to the fund and he had been that for a while, you know. And one day my boss walks up to me, right, and she says to me, "Hey, Bankole, I think you should be the secretary of the SIT fund." My heart, it just went, because you don't understand. These were the senior management guys. Those were the guys on that committee. The only lower cadre. So, and even Hakim was I think then he was a senior banking officer. I was an executive trainee. I just joined, I was fresh, right? And obviously I panicked in the moment, in the AC, I was just sweating. And she could just see the discomfort, right? And how my emotions were just really right. And later on, she came to meet me, brought it up again, froze, panicked, right? And she could tell. Eventually, she says to me, Bankole, don't worry, I think Akim should remain in that position, right? That's one of the, when I look back in my career, so to speak, as a banker at the time, that's one of the moments in time that I regret, right? And I regret it because do you know what it would have been to have the opportunity to have close contact with the senior management members of that organization, right? That was such a massive opportunity, but I allowed my emotions, so to speak, get the better part of me. I froze in the moment, right? And you see, that is life. Life will present you situations. Your interpretation will determine your experience, right? I love the way, even though some people like to argue this one, but I kind of like it. I think it was Shakespeare in Hamlet. He said, "There is nothing good or bad. Thinking makes it so." So it is the way you think about the situation that determines what the situation will be to you. And for me, it just looked like something that was going to destroy me, right? But in reality, it was something that had the potential to elevate me, right? So that's one example. There are other examples, when I was transiting. So I remember for the first time in my career, I wasn't promoted, right? And And my boss, right, had given me an A star. My direct boss had given me an A star. The head of HR gave me an A star. A star is like the highest rating. So you get the highest rating and then you're not promoted. So, we had like this opportunity to have interactions with our superiors to know, the outcome of our appraisals and everything. And I asked her, I said, it's kind of weird. You gave me the highest rating here and I'm not being promoted. I felt really, really bad because at the time I felt I'd put in a lot. So I was curious. I wanted to know. So, please can you tell me, and do you have any feedback for me? And I still remember her words. All she said to me was, Bankole, I just want you to know that it's not every year you get it. I'm like, I don't understand. As in, I need to improve. Tell me what I need to work on, And she looked me straight in the eye and said, Bankole, I just want you to know that it's not every year you get it. And that was it. And I know how that really rocked my world. And I was almost going to make a very stupid decision, right? Because there was another offer that I was considering, and I was going to just up and leave on a whim and just to hell with these people, right? Whereas in reality, what the move that I needed to make in the process of time, right? Not instantaneously, which was what was already beginning to happen to me, right? In the process of time, the move that I needed to make was to transit from what I was doing in HR, right, to go into consulting, right? That experience led to me rethinking about my why, rethinking about my purpose, rethinking about what I felt I was called to do, right? So yeah, that was also a very low moment, for me. And I remember that, it took me a while to manage, how I felt because I felt I'd given so much and I wasn't being rewarded for it. It took me a while to be able to, get myself together. And I almost, like I said, made a very silly decision to take on an offer that in fact, that organization folded up, or so to speak, was, I think they were acquired or something. And if my friend who was in that organization, I know what they went through, right, in that organization, and it would have been such a horrid decision to make.
Thank you so much, Bankole, for that response. And indeed, like you said, life happens to us in different form, in different dimensions. What makes the difference is how we interpret the situation that we are faced with. And for me, that is a critical takeaway. Okay, do we have any questions from our participants? We have a couple of more minutes before we round up today's session. Thank you so much, Toyin, for your comments. Even in something that looks bad, there is always something good. Absolutely spot on. Thank you. Anyone else? Seth says, observe and understand the people you work with. Thank you. There is no almighty formula that works for everyone. Different people with different stories and different background, different spec, different personality. So someone said, is the variety of the difference that we see in other people that makes the world a beautiful place. You all cannot look or have the same form of personality. The variety we get is from all the variants and all the differences that we get from the people we interact with regularly. Thank you. Okay, I think I have one more final question here before, whilst we're waiting for me. Does any question from any of our participants in the house? So the World Economic Forum recently released the top 10 skills that would be relevant in the new world of work by 2025. And majority of those skills centers on soft skills. There's a particular skill on self-management, such as resilience, stress tolerance, flexibility, and managing self and regulating self in the workplace. My question is, to what extent do we need to continue to build resilience? Like you mentioned earlier about the collective energy that we all experience. How can we navigate through this to the extent where
you don't get to a point where you feel burnt out. I mean, you would agree with me that if you're in an environment that is tense, that doesn't align with you, you would naturally exert more energy to thrive in such an environment. And that would continue to put a lot of pressure on you. You're daily trying to be resilient, but we are humans. You will get to a point where that elasticity, you know,
Limits.
bound or limit would break. So to what extent do we all continue to stay resilient, stay flexible, manage, have your own strategy to stay ahead of the collective energy and all the likes?
In fact, this is a subject that I need to, I really think it's something I need to talk a bit more about and probably even offer solutions to corporate organizations, because
Fantastic.
it is needed now, right? The world has changed, and like you rightly said, the World Economic Forum has recognized this as the top skill that is required, for you to thrive. And it's visible to the blind, audible to the deaf. It's so clear that the world has changed. But it's the truth. It's so clear that the world has changed. And with a changing world, the prerequisites for one, surviving, two, thriving in this world has changed. The version of you that could survive and thrive in the previous world, you cannot bring that version of you to this new world. And I mean, this new world being the new workplace. It's changed, right? We live in, and I know that some people will want to say, God forbid, and argue it. See, the wise virgins, they carried extra oil. They were not anticipating for just the best outcome. So wisdom is discerning the times that you are in and knowing what is required for you to thrive in the times that you're in. The world that we're in is becoming increasingly volatile. Someone say, God forbid, is the truth that that's the world that we're in. You go on social media, just go on your social media and look at what is trending. There's one negative thing happening in one part of the world, or it's being made popular. So it might be something even small that's happening, but just the popularity of it, just the fact that it's coming to you faster and quicker, right, is creating a bit more negativity or negative energy, right, that's out there. So there is a need for the development of resilience to be able to rise above what the world throws at you, right? And the workplace, organizations need to be a lot more mindful about this, because productivity is tied to resourcefulness. Resourcefulness is tied to resilience, right? And I would explain this using very, very practical analogies for everyone to understand. If a dog was to show up right now in that room that you're in, a wild barking dog that looks untamed, right? That dog becomes a threat. Now, whenever a threat shows up in our environment, we switch into survival, right? We switch on our survival centers. And when you switch into survival, a number of things happen to you, and they're very scientific, right? When a threat shows up, you switch into survival. What happens is that you begin to contract. It's just the default that happens. So the body begins to release certain kinds of hormones. Adrenaline is released, fight or flight, right? Is released into your bloodstream. Now, when adrenaline is released into your bloodstream, adrenaline, cortisol, right? When they're released into your bloodstream, what happens is that they signal your survival centers, which are your hands and your feet, right? So energy moves from the basic functioning units of your body to your survival centers. That's how come, has anybody ever been chased by a dog here before and then you ran faster than Usain Bolt, right? You did the impossible. You jumped over a fence and you looked at the fence the following day, you were shocked. You jumped in a car. Does that happen, right? When a threat shows up, you do the impossible.
Absolutely.
Where did that energy come from? Where did the energy fall on you from the sky? It didn't fall on you from the sky. It came from somewhere. So where did it come from? Someone said they climbed the tree. Let me tell you where it came from. It came from within. So the energy that you use for your immunity to fight a toxic bacteria, that's not the moment to fight a bacteria. The energy that you use for the functioning of your guts, for the functioning of your organs, the energy used for creativity, that's not the time to create. All that energy is being transported to your hands and to your feet for survival. So the point here is, what you are using for survival, you are losing for growth. Growth, creativity, and survival cannot happen simultaneously. So whenever you are operating out of stress, you cannot function optimally. You can't grow. You can't be creative. You can't be at your best. Because when you are in stress, you contract. Growth is not contraction, it is expansion. Can contraction and expansion happen simultaneously? The answer is no. So with the increase in stress levels, or with the increase in threats, because there seems to be increased threats in the world that we're in, right? You go on the news, you're hearing one thing happening in one part of the world, with the increase in threats comes the propensity for increase in stress. Now, with the increase in stress, if you are not equipped with the skills to be resilient, right, there would be a reduction in growth, a reduction in creativity, a reduction in productivity, right? There will be a reduction in workplace productivity, output, all that, until people are equipped with a new level of resilience that can withstand, not only withstand, but even rise above the what seems to be the status quo of threats that are being thrown at employees, right, or thrown at people. So the point is, it is a skill for now that people know how to regulate from within and know how to build their resilience over time, so that they can deal, so that before a threat shows up, they are well equipped to be able to handle it and respond in a way that does not disempower them. Yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely spot on. Thank you so much, Bankole, for laying additional emphasis to that, so we can better understand the importance of self-management as a critical skill, as a must-have skill in the new world of work that we're in. Amazing. Wow. Oh, it's really been an exciting 1 hour, 15 minutes. Thank you so much. Are there any questions in the house as we call it a day in the next few minutes? Any
questions, or just comment. How's it been so far? If you want to just unmute and just say something, okay, I have a question very quickly, but please send in your comments, how you're feeling, how it's been so far for you. For me, it's really been a wow session so far. Thank you. Okay, so I have a question here from Kitim Momo. Oh, I'm a first-time participant. Oh, nice. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Bankole, for sharing your wisdom and experience. I will definitely hit the drawing board after this. But a quick question from him. It reads, so I'm just trying to expand my view so I can get all the questions at a glance. Okay, my question, how tolerant or calm can an HR be when you are being tested by the devil himself in form of a boss? Does resilience not involve challenging the protocols?
Yeah, so definitely, right? Resilience, emotional intelligence, mastery, it doesn't mean that you are going to, act like a weakling. It's not weakness. It doesn't mean that you don't challenge the status quo. No. It just means that you are challenging the status quo from a resourceful state. The problem is people are challenging the status quo from an unresourceful state. And by so doing, they are hurting themselves. And it's very likely that they will hurt another person. And with two people being unresourceful, how resourceful can they be? What kind of outcomes can they produce? Right. So this does not mean being a weakling. It doesn't mean when you see something that needs to be addressed, right, you avoid it. In fact, I see a lot of people who avoid hard conversations, hard, difficult conversations, all in the name of I don't want trouble, right? But the truth is, the question really is whilst you may avoid trouble on the outside, the real question is there trouble on the inside? If we were to check the status of your hearts, would we find peace there? Or would we find the turmoil on the inside, right? So it's how you know that there is resolution is that when you check, and I hope you have a good way of checking the calibration of your heart. You check and all you have there is nothing but love towards anyone, right? And absolute peace. But some people have so much offense on the inside, but on the outside, they are non-confrontational. They're not having hard and difficult conversations, right? So I'm not saying you shouldn't have I'm saying have the conversations from a place of resourcefulness, from a place of peace, right? Yeah, so definitely that is required. Sometimes, I'll give you an example, right? Sometimes you have to be able to weigh. So I'll give you an example. I see this happen sometimes, maybe in the workplace. Some people are just people pleasers. So the boss says, I want XYZ done within this time. And your table is full. In fact, you're a team lead. Your team members are overwhelmed. Your plate is full. Now the CEO who is dishing out that instruction does not know the extent of work that you guys are having to deal with, but because you do not like confrontation and your conditioning is such that once or God, we just take it. You are a yes man. You say yes to that request when you know it's unrealistic, and then your team would have to work day and night to fulfill something that could have been addressed if you had a confrontation, or if you had a conversation, right? And if you even asked, sir, I really would, I know that this is very important to you, but I would love to know how urgent it is, right? And you will find out that maybe it's even not as urgent, but because anything that comes from the CEO, your default programming is because it is CEO, it is important and urgent. Your people are going through hell because you're unwilling to have, those kinds of conversations, and you have to be able to wait. Either way, there will be difficulty to be faced, right? Either way, it's either the difficulty of having to do so much work in a short period of time and stress yourself out and stress your team out. That's a difficulty. Or the difficulty of facing the CEO and presenting your case in a way that will get him to make an adjustment with respect to the timelines. You have to be able to weigh them both. And and when I look at it, I'd rather pick that tough conversation with the CEO, right? And in fact, I'm telling you that there are dimensions of leadership where your ability to have those tough conversations is a serious prerequisite for promotion, in senior management cadres. Your ability to not always be agreeable, right, is an important skill, because it means that when you see something that is wrong that will put the organization in a difficult position, you will boldly come out to confront those things and not shy away from it, right? So yeah, there's a bit of balance to it. But final thing I'm going to add to that question, right? If you are conscious of a boss being the devil, your consciousness gives life to whatever it is focused on. So if that's where you place your consciousness, and maybe that was a joke, I don't know, but if you think that, and that's what your consciousness, it becomes your reality. So I think maybe you want to also change the interpretation or the narrative you've given to that superior, right? Sometimes people are doing the best that they can with what they know. If he knew better, he probably would have done better.
And that just wraps it up for me, that things become what we call them. So it's either you see it as, okay, he wants the best from me, rather than give him, a not so positive label, if I can use that word. Thank you so much. Wow, it's really been exciting. Loads and tons of wisdom from Bankole Williams here today. Thank you so much. Bankole, how can our participants reach out to you? You want to drop your contact details, your IG, LinkedIn, email? How can they reach out to you?
Instagram, yes. My handle is @IamBankole.
Okay.
On other platforms, it's Bankole Williams. But Instagram, yeah, you can send me a message on Instagram @Bankole. My official email is info@bankolewilliams.com.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Even though we have 2 questions, I'm not sure we can take both, but I'll just take one from Chigozie here. My question is in a startup company, the boss refusing to employ more staff and makes me, the HR, do jobs that are not in my job description, like sales, personnel, marketing, social media managing, and all the likes. What should I do? Michael, I want to respond that very quickly, and afterwards give your parting word. Thank you.
I say this, that at the end of the day, it's an individual's life. Yes, you have your job description, and I believe that people should be able to do more. And when I mean more, I'm going somewhere. I don't mean you should go and start becoming the cleaner and degrading or doing jobs that, so to speak, are really below your pay grade and all that. No. Right? I believe that your job description may not entirely communicate every single thing that would show up. You want to be able to be the kind of person who identifies problems and solves them, even though it may not directly be stated in a job description. You want to identify opportunities and seize them, right, for the organization as a whole, right? So that's definitely something that I teach and I talk about. Now, when it starts getting beyond the norm over an extended period of time, that's where there is challenge, right? Especially when it is really outside, way off the scope of what it is you are hired for, right? And I believe that it's important that you have certain qualities of conversation now with whoever these decision makers are, because there is an extent of productivity you can get from somebody who is everywhere, right? There's an extent of focus that is required to get optimal output, from people, right? So it's probably a conversation you want to have to see things from perspective, from the employer's perspective. So the goal of the conversation is not to show up as a difficult person, no, is to understand the rationale for those kinds of decisions. Sometimes it depends on the kind of organization. So my perception is that this organization is a small scale organization. Now, some organizations, especially when they are startups, right, and they're smaller scale organizations, it takes time to be able to build to the point where the organization can hire people to fit into specific roles, right? So it might be that the organization doesn't have enough funds to be able to hire as many people as ideally it should be hiring. So some quality of conversation will give you some insight as to the why, right? And then if you understand the why, you can then decide if this is something you're willing to do for a period, right? If you understand the why, you can then begin to have conversations as to, okay, we're doing this because we're in this phase of business. We hope that by XYZ time, we're willing to grow to the point where we can be able to do more, right? It gives perspective, helps you deal with whatever emotions or energy that you're dealing with, right? If you had a better understanding of what exactly was going on in the business, which is what I'm trying to say here, where you are able to have a conversation that's not intended to ridicule the employer, but to understand, the reality of what is going on, right? If you have that kind of conversation and you are still not content, right, with whatever feedback they're getting, then it's your call to decide whether or not you're willing to live under those conditions, or you probably feel like you will be better, your skills will be better maximized in some other organization.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bankole, for that. What will be your parting word today to all our participants?
I think my parting words would be that you choose not to be a victim. Choose to be 100% responsible for what happens on the inside of you. I may not have any control over what happens on the outside, but I have absolute control over what happens on the inside of me, right? The question now is, do you have the skill? And if you lack the skill to take charge of what's happening on the inside of you, then maybe you should invest or do something to ensure that you acquire the skill to be a victor and not a victim, to be the creator of your life.
That's very powerful. You need to be ready to invest in your own self-development, especially in skills that would make you a victor and not a victim. Wow. Thank you so much, Bankole. That was really powerful. So our participants, as we usually do, would like someone from the audience to just go off mute now and just give the vote of thanks. Just express how the entire session has been for you this evening on behalf of all our listeners and participants today. Anyone, please feel free to just go off mute and just give just share your feedback. How is it?
what has been your key takeaway, and just give the vote of thanks based on the level of impact and knowledge that you have acquired today. Anyone? So it's just random vote of thanks. You don't need to come prepared. Just come and express. Just share, express. Let's know how he's been doing you. He's been doing me.
All right, so I would like to take the opportunity then. So my name
All
is
right.
Gary.
Dari. Oh, fantastic. Please go ahead, Dari.
I just want to say thank you, Bankole. Thank you, Coach Lara. It was really, really enlightening. I've learned a lot. And so it's just more or less just applying this and being able to like testify in terms of the impact. I think I also want to also share as well, maybe like through my stories so that other people can learn about this. I think that this is something that if it's possible to happen like every week, it's definitely like would be nice. I think we should get the recording. I know that people have been saying they want the recording as well.
I'll
So yeah,
share it.
just thank you very much. And please, if we can do this more often as well, just beg it. Yeah. All right.
Hey, all right, thank you so much. Can I add that please follow Bankole on IG at I am Bankole. Very recently, he's been doing something very powerful. Bankole, your videos are awesome. The concept and creativity, the analogy and the storytelling you bring to them, I'm like, gosh, this is really amazing. Guys, please go to IG and follow him bumper to bumper right away. He does a lot of amazing stuff with his video, passing across messages around self-development and how you can become a victor and not a victim. On that note, I want to say thank you so much, everyone, for joining, for participating. I think at some point we had almost 70 people online. Thank you, Bankole, for your time. I know if we had to pay for this time, gosh, God knows, I might have had to go and call up my life savings, but that's just a joke. Thank you for offering to come and share of yourself. You gave of yourself to us this evening. I personally have been impacted positively. I've been blessed. Thank you to all our participants in the house. You made it a success today. I appreciate you all. And like Bankole said, go and acquire the skill that you need so you can become a victor and no longer a victim. On that note, I remain Lara Yeku. I'm passionate about storytelling. I use storytelling to make impact because I believe when lives become transformed, individuals become better, it leads to better society and greater workplaces. Thank you. And on that note, I take a bow. Thank you. The recordings will be shared with everyone that dropped their email address and those that registered initially as well. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Do have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.